Hey folks, Mike here with Everyone Loves Pirates. Just a quick video for you today about the newest version of Dwarf Fortress. Yes, there is a new version. Don't get your hopes up too quickly because it's a bug fix. However, I think these are some really good bug fixes. So if you're like me and you haven't been playing for a while because of some of the bugs that you've been running into, maybe this might just tempt you to get back in. So let's take a look at a few of them. And essentially, why I say that is because you'll notice kind of a theme or a pattern with these. A lot of them are going to have to do either directly or indirectly with your dwarf stress levels. And my issue, if you saw my last fortress or two, or any of my comments on previous updates, is the spiral, the tantrum spirals, the stress spirals were just overwhelming. You never felt like you had any agency over any control. There was nothing you could really do. And that was the case because there was a lot of bugs related to that. A lot of the really big ones got fixed, which I've covered in previous updates. But this seems to get rid of a few more that I think will be actually pretty effective. And maybe it means they're kind of at the end of the issues with the stress system, at least in its current form. All right, let's dive into some of the stuff. There's some crashes and all this other stuff that I never really ran into. But let's look at the ones I was kind of talking about. So right here we got made cave adaptations negative effects less frequent. Great, right? I don't know if you're like me. I always felt obligated to build something outside, a statue garden, meeting area, the temples, whatever, just to make sure that every dwarf got outside occasionally so that they didn't get cave adaptation. Because if I ended up needing them, for some military operation and they hadn't been training outside, or who knows, maybe a forgotten beast comes up through the caverns or something and scares everybody outside like a disturbed anthill, they would just spend their entire time puking until they were killed. Now it sounds like, well, they'll probably still puke, but maybe just not continuously. Might have to go eat something again first before they can puke. So yeah, I think that's great. Number two, made people get used to seeing dead bodies. Again, this is a big one for me. I think my last fortress that I streamed, it died to a tantrum spiral when all those bugs were in place. But I think one of the things that was really getting to them is I believe they could just barely see my dead body stockpile, essentially, the refuse pile. When they went to go like pick fruit, and I think I had my temples outside as well. So enough dwarfs were going out there and then like just barely kind of like being able to see around the wall that I had put up. And it went bad quick. So yeah, it's not great to see dead bodies, but I mean, I imagine you do get used to it eventually. You die a little bit inside. It doesn't mean there's not other mental or emotional, health issues, but at least you're used to it. So there you go. Take that for what it's worth. They stopped some particular visitors coming. Never really had an issue with that because I kind of turned off a lot of the crazy stuff. Made basic friendships easier to form for slow-to-love people. So it sounds like slow-to-love people have a hard time making loving, intense probably isn't the right word, but close relationships with people. At least this way, they can more easily make kind of a basic friendship. So they do still have someone they can go talk to if they're stressed out, maybe lower that stress level some. And I think that's good. They'll feel less isolated. Maybe we need basic friendship bug fixes for the entire world right now. But for now, it's in Dwarf Fortress, and I think that'll help with the stress levels. What else do we have? Well, we got some other bug fixes and tweaks, and really they're kind of the same, so I don't know why, they're on the same line of stuff, so I don't know why they're separated out, but we're going to cover a few of these as well. Made people that work outside a lot get used to bad weather, much like getting used to seeing dead bodies. I think this is a great idea, particularly for me, because I tend to like to embark on areas that have water, so I'll get a fisher dwarf in my initial 7 dwarfs. It's a quick food option early on in a fortress. You get a bunch of shells and stuff that you can use to decorate with. I find it's a pretty effective way when you only have 7 dwarfs to take care of some of your food issues. However, I always felt obligated, like even if I didn't feel like matching everyone's kind of characteristics and values and all the statistic stuff to their profession. I always felt like I had to do it for the Fisher Dwarf because the Fisher Dwarf was spending a lot of time outside, and if you're outside a lot, you're going to get rained on a lot. They're alone typically while they're fishing. So, I mean, they need things like high focus and all this other stuff, but, you know, a dwarf that meets all the kind of like the Fisher Dwarf, just the standard stuff, like whatever it is. Focus, I think, is one. Willpower might be one. Can't really quite remember, probably kinesthetic sense. I don't know. But even if you hit all those, if their personality, if they didn't, you know, if they're extroverted, well, having them be alone all the time fishing doesn't help. If they hate the rain, if they hate the weather, then they're also a very bad choice. Maybe they're good at being a Fisher Dwarf, but they're miserable while they're doing it. So the idea that people who work outside constantly eventually get used to bad weather makes tons of sense for me. Makes sense from a gameplay function. It makes sense just on a that makes sense function. And I'm going to move on to the next one because clearly my thoughts are not lining up very well today. So they made valuable food satisfy the good meal thought in addition to preferences. So if I'm reading this correctly, previously, whether a dwarf had a good meal thought about a meal they just ate did not factor in how valuable the food was. It only factored in that individual dwarf's food preferences. You know, they like to consume fuzzy maggot milk or whatever. It's always something that there's no way you're ever going to get it in your fortress. More often than not. So this is good for me. One, yeah, of course, a high value meal is a high quality meal. You know, luxurious meal has, you know, at least 3 items in it, one of which is booze. Like they should think, hey, this was a pretty good meal. It may not have been my purring maggot milk, but it was still good. May not have been lobster, but it was Wagyu steak. So for me, since I tend to create a food economy and I put all my effort and resources into making the most luxurious, lavish meals I can as quickly as I can from a master craft dwarf chef, I think I'm going to have some pretty happy dwarfs in my fortress as long as they're eating. Let's see. They added some additional dwarf chat types to meet some other needs and reduce stress. Again, great. They'll have a few other types of conversations and stuff so that their stress levels don't skyrocket. That's great. Stopped many minor thoughts from forming memories. Probably a good thing. Like, that sounds pretty anxious to me if all your little minor thoughts turn into long-term memories and you ruminate over them at night and stuff like that. Yeah, I could see how that would stress you out and maybe make you unhappy. So, you know, again, something maybe we could use for the world, but at least it's in Dwarf Fortress. Remove stress from migrants, ones from old forts. So it sounds like before migrants could come to your fort already pretty stressed out, maybe on the verge of breakdown, and maybe that's not the case anymore. I can't really remember if I ever ran into that myself. Probably, I never really checked my migrants very closely. I'll just kind of see, okay, well, he's useless, whatever, I need haulers. And kind of to jump past that a little bit, over the next one, which is vengefulness is no longer stressful, fine. They also changed the balance of migrant profession. So I'm hoping this means that in your migrant waves, you might actually get some useful dwarfs. You know, I'm complaining in good fun because that's the game, and it's kind of amusing when you get three cheesemaker dwarfs when you still have no one who can deal with all the disease in your fortress or something. But you know, it's just, I don't know, it always felt like that second migration, or the first migration wave, the second set of dwarfs that come into your fortress, it always seemed like they were completely useless. Not one of them had anything that I wanted early on in a fortress's life. So, here you go. Maybe this will change that up a little bit. I think it's worth a shot. And then some other various stuff. So that's what's new in this bug fix update. Again, maybe this will bring you back to the game. If it does, I'd be interested in hearing how you get along with it. Any thoughts you have about Fortress Mode, because all this stuff seems to be Fortress Mode exclusive. Yes, I guess exclusive and inclusive. One other thing before I move on to just checking out some of the new stuff image-wise that they posted for the Steam version. Just back on 12/21, I don't know if I pointed this out in my last video, but Tarn has on the Kit Fox YouTube page And I'll put a link as well if you don't want to go to bay12games.com/dwarfs and click on this link. There'll be one in the description of my video as well, just that goes over there. Who knows, maybe I can do one of those fancy things at the end of the video. I don't know if you can do that for channels outside your own. But Tarn's just talking about a lot of the stuff I covered in my last update. But it's, you get to watch the game actually be played. He doesn't really do a whole lot, but at the same time, you get to see the dwarves moving around and see how you make a stockpile now and stuff like that. So if you haven't seen that, I think it's interesting. There's a bit of a cameo by Scamps, so if you're a big cat fan, you can watch the first minute of that video and be fulfilled, I guess. All right, let's move on to Steam version stuff. So here's some of the new images that they've posted in the past month or so. We got a bronze Colossus here in the arena, and he kind of just laid out all this viscera. So these are kind of the body part types. You see some intestines. That looks like lungs, and that looks like nice steak. So that would be meat, I'm assuming. Skull, bones, teeth, eyeball. Fun stuff. Why not? Then we have some beds with a casket, which I did not recognize as a casket immediately. It looked more like a chest of drawers or a chest or something. But I really like these beds. And I know that might be kind of a weird thing to say. And, maybe there's only 3 different types, but I like that there's some variety. And it's not just like the bottom one here isn't just a mirrored image of the top one. The sheets are slightly different. The pillows on the opposite side, but it's not like rotated as if it was mirrored. It might have been copy pasted, flipped, and rotated, or just rotated, but it looks different at first glance. It's not that thing where your brain immediately is like, there's something funky going on here. And then this one's got like a little pattern on a sheet. It's got 2 pillows. From what I've seen, they just sleep in the bed. Like, this is just like a tile. Might as well not even be there as far as the dwarf's concerned. It doesn't change when they get in bed or change when they get out of it. But I think that would be kind of cool. Probably something that will never happen, but it's a thought if anyone's watching this. Dwarf gets into bed, even if they're not under the covers, maybe they get into bed, it looks like this, and when they get out, the graphic changes to one where the covers are messed up or something. I don't know. Yeah, not worth the cycles, the processing power to do that, I'm sure. So just forget I said anything at all. Now we have some coffins, and the commentary that went alongside this one was that now they're placed and they look open like on the bottom, and then when you fill them up with a dwarf, they look closed. Imagine that. But we have our different kind of materials here. It looks like this style of coffin is chosen based on the material you make it from. So this looks like stone, that's wood. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe embellished stone. I'd be really interested in knowing what this one is. And this one looks like glass or crystal or something. All right, now we have giant small animals, which I believe are giant versions of typically small animals and not giant animals who have shrunk to small size. Of course, there's no such thing in Dwarf Fortress, but yeah, there you go. It's the typical kind of graphic style we're getting used to with this update. I think it looks good. Not like I have to get used to it. I think it's as good as any tile set I've used in the past. I really actually like that snail with the shell, just the shading on it. Like, that's maybe 8 different colors in that image, but it still looks good to me. All right. And then we have some, I think this was an adventure mode thing where you got a human with his pet camel and, I don't know, somebody over there. But yeah, looks good. Why not? Here's one of the arena. We got humans on the left, and I'm assuming dwarves on the right. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I remembered kind of lore-wise that even female dwarfs had beards, and these do not. But yeah, there you go. That's what they look like. Some of the different, the way their hair looks or their beard or their skin color or whatever is determined by, their character sheets. So it's reflected in their sprite or graphic or whatever you want to call it. And that's always cool. Here's the same thing with armor and weapons and stuff. It's going to show what they have equipped, and you can just glance really quickly and be like, oh, my dwarves did not put their armor on before they went out to attack that Forgotten Beast. Here's an invasion, human invasion with a war leader elephant that was apparently a bug along with them. It looks like this was just after this was formed. Like that's the great thing I think about this new UI. which I guess is what I'll focus on in this image, is that you can see, yeah, population 7 original dwarfs, 6 idlers. Well, that's probably not very good, but they're all just content. They're in the middle happiness range. So yeah, this was probably very early on in this embark. They probably embarked in the year 25 and then spawned a invading army or something. But I just love how you can just get a really quick glance at everything that's going on. And I think that would be very helpful for playing the game, especially for new folks. All right, so here's not my fortress, but it could be, because look at all those dead dwarfs, all these coffins. I'm going to zoom in a bit here. Again, they all look identical, so I'm assuming they're all using wood. There don't seem to be different shades of coffin or anything, so it may not pick up the shade of wood that you're using. But yeah, not a lot to say for that. Just look at all the dead dwarfs. This bugs me a little bit. I don't know why. It just does. It's like, okay, well, they have to go all the way around here, all the way around here, all the way around here, and then go all the way back. Like, I would definitely hook that up, but they didn't really quite leave themselves enough room. But this is not criticize somebody else's fortress style. If that was the case, well, there could be hour-long videos about my fortresses. Now, here's the last image, and one of the most interesting ones to me, at least. You got all the typical stuff. You can see this is pretty well-established fortress. Got 137 dwarfs, only 10 idlers, so they're put to work well. Most of them are happy. A couple aren't. Got thousands of food, a bunch of drink, stuff like that. However, on the right here, we have an info sheet for one of the dwarfs. Their stat sheet, or I don't know what they would end up calling it. But we got Unib here. He's a farmer. Apparently, I believe that means he's socializing currently. And we're looking at the overview tab here, which is going to contain a lot of the same stuff that are in these other tabs. But, you know, it's an overview. You can just glance at this really quickly and see the most important stuff that you typically want to know about your dwarf. So he's 37, or excuse me, she is 37. Has a spouse. That's the name of the spouse. I imagine, maybe not, but I would hope that you'd be able to click on that and maybe go to the spouse or something. Then we have a little health synopsis there, and they're healthy. What they're wearing, the armor, llama-wool dress there. Their actual, like, specific skills, adequate herbalist and adequate spinner, which I believe gets generalized to the farming profession. And here you got some of their kind of... what do you call those, attributes or abilities or whatever. And the important ones are things like poor spatial sense or low stamina. You click on them, you're like, okay, well, we should not make this guy a crafts dwarf or a miner, probably, though a miner might build up his stamina over time. So good stuff there. No official position. He's not in a squad, but he's a competent hammer dwarf. Now, this is very useful because I'm always looking to pretty much conscript people into my army right when I need it the most, because I never set up a military setup at all. So, you know, being able to quickly look at some people, maybe even the people who are closest to the attacking enemy, and be like, okay, yeah, you're conscripted. You're in the army now. Go grab anything you can and attack. And then we have the needs. I still don't really feel personally like the need system is kind of maybe fully actualized in the game yet, but it's there, and it might give you kind of an insight into, you know, how people are doing and what they're thinking, and if they're at risk for becoming, you know, unhappy later on if you're not ever fulfilling some need of theirs. And then we have lastly the kind of, I don't know, kind of event log, I guess. This would be that massive paragraph that used to be at the top when you look at your dwarf status. Just one of these line after line right next to each other. Very hard to read. Love that this is in list format. They kept, you know, the highlighting and stuff. So you can just glance at this really quickly and be like, okay, it's like 90% blue. Great. Smattering of green, a little bit of light blue, which is amazing. And then, you know, a couple little beigey things here about being lonely or grouchy. He was grouchy because he was dwelling upon being caught in the rain. So he had been caught in the rain, which probably made him grouchy as well. And then this little minor thought he just started to dwell upon. So I don't know. Hopefully that's changed, but perhaps not. But anyways, I think this is just a great way to just get a quick look at what your dwarves are doing. He saw a dwarf recite the hellish deterioration at the dumpling of helms. It's very interesting. And yeah, he was interested after watching that performance. Looks like he watched a lot of performances and some fine doors. So there you go. I think that's a good place to end this. It went about 10 minutes longer than I thought, but I got a little bit verbose there. And yeah, I'm excited for a new version, even if it's just a bug fix. I'm glad they're still working on that kind of stuff. And the Steam version looks like it's coming along. To me personally, it looks like it's ready. I'm not a big fan of early access, though Dwarf Fortress, I guess you could call the king of early access. But I mean, I would be content if they released it kind of as it looks now. Just all this stuff alone is enough for me. But I'd understand this is their first chance to make a good impression on the throngs of people who've heard about Dwarf Fortress but were scared away by the askiness. So to have them have it in exactly the way they want it before it gets its Steam release, to focus on the quality over just getting it out there and then making it making some changes every month or so. I think that would be good. It'd be nice to have kind of a stable base version of Dwarf Fortress for people to get interested into it. So thanks a lot for listening, joining me today. I'm interested in your thoughts, especially if you end up playing a Fortress mode after these fixes. And just let me know how it went. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.